So hello everybody, welcome to another SUPboarder video. This video we're going to be looking at a Aztron range of foiling gear. Yes, this is a range of foiling gear from a very competitive price point brand on the market. Aztron make inflatable paddleboards, hard composite paddleboards, a large amount of accessories this year, and this year a complete foiling and wing range of products. This is going to be really interesting. A lot of you are going to be interested to watch this video because when you've got foils, boards and wings starting for about £500, it's definitely a brand you might want to look into if you're getting into the foiling side of our sport. So Aztron are becoming less of a new kid on the block now. They definitely have been making paddleboards for a few years, and we've reviewed quite a few paddleboards in the past. Mainly iSUPs, but we have looked at composite paddleboards as well. Now, the interesting thing about Aztron bringing out this range of foiling gear is that these are pretty much one of the first cheaper price point mass market brands to do this. You can get way more expensive foiling gear in the market from, I would say, much more higher pedigreed brands, but this is the first time that a cheap price point brand has taken hold and given you a full foiling range. And is the stuff any good? Well, that's what we're going to talk about now. But first, let's speak about what's in their range for 2021. So first off, wing-wise, they have two wings this year. You might have seen one of the wings was in our SUPboarder Pro wing test. That was the 5 meter, and they also make a 4 meter as well. These are very competitive price points, retailing at £449 for the 4 meter and £499 for the 5 meter. Moving on to the boards in the Aztron range, you have two boards this year. You have a Falcon Air, which is an inflatable foil board, and you have a Falcon, which is a hard composite carbon foil board. The specifications for the Falcon Air, it is 7'6" long, 31 inches wide, it's 4.75 inches thick, and it brings the volume in at 175 litres. When we weighed that board, it weighed 9.39 kilograms or 20.70 pounds. And also with that package, you do get a coiled leash and you get a tri-fixed fin setup as well. And the retail price is £499 for the Falcon Air. If we look at the specifications for the Falcon Carbon, that board is 6'6" long, 25.5 inches wide, so it's a lot narrower than the Falcon Air, 4.75 inches thick, same thickness as the inflatable Falcon, and it's 115 litres in volume. That weighs 6.43 kilograms or 14.8 pounds when we weighed it, so it's a really lightweight board. And with that board, you do get a coiled leash and an 8-inch nylon fin as well. And that board retails, remember this is a full carbon board, at £699. Now, we will speak a bit more about the wings and the boards in a minute. Let's move on to what foils Aztron make in their 2021 collection. So Aztron have actually got 4 complete foil packages for this year, which is pretty amazing considering they've just come out the gate running and they've already got 4 foils in their range. The sizes of those foils, they come with a 1450, a 1650, an 1800 and a 2000. Now, what do all those numbers mean? Well, in simple terms, they are the area, the front area of the foils themselves. The higher the number, so the 2000s, the 1800s, the bigger the foil is going to be. A bigger foil is going to give you more lift, so therefore if you're a heavier person or you're wanting to go out in smaller waves or get going in lighter winds, you're going to want to have a bigger foil. If you're a lighter person or you want to go out in windier condition and surf bigger waves, you're going to be moving down to a smaller size foil, so a 1450, something like that. Now, all these rocket foils come at very competitive prices. The 1450, which is the smallest one, retails at £499. The Rocket 1650, which a lot of you are going to be looking at and I'll speak about a bit more in a minute, retails at a very good £599. And the Rocket 1800H, which is a slightly different shape, again, which I'll speak about in a minute, retails at £649. And the biggest Rocket 2000 retails at £749. So that's some of the specifications and the prices for these products from Aztron from 2021. And that does mean you can get on the water for about £1,500, £1,900 for a complete package and a wing foil board to get you into those foiling sides of the sport. So definitely it is at that cheaper price point if you're getting into foiling this year. So going back up through the range now, giving you a bit more detail about the products and looking at the pros and cons of each of them. Now, looking at the wings, now we tested the Aztron wing in our original SUPboarder Pro wing test, which is where we had lots of wings for it to go head to head against. To be honest, it was thrust against some of the best wings on the market. Now, it didn't win the test, there's no doubt about that, but it didn't completely fail in every category either. Definitely something that you can easily get into the sport with. It's got everything you need to as a beginner. It's got windows so you can see through the wing, nice and easy to use in that sense. It's got lots of large handles, so it's very easy to grab the wing as you're using it. It doesn't give you an excessive amount of power like some of the more specialist wings that, to be honest, would cost twice the price, but it is generally a nice balanced wing. Again, price point wise, you can't argue with the price point. A wing like that, the build quality seems okay. The materials maybe are not as good as some other top end brands, but again, bringing in that price point, the value for what you get, it is good value and it will last you a few years for sure. Sizes wise, whether you want to go for the 5 meter or the 4 meter, think about that. It's really about how much wind you're going out in and how heavy you are. If you're an 85 plus kilo person, then I would strongly say looking at the 5 meter would be a good all-round size. If you're lighter, definitely if you're in the sort of 80, 75 kilograms and down and you want to use it in most wind conditions, maybe the 4 meter will be a better option. A bigger size is just going to give you more power, but remember it's a bigger wing, so it's harder to move around. It's a little bit larger in its wingtips. Therefore, if you're starting off not on the foil, having a longer wing is going to drag its wingtips a little bit more in the water. But when you start getting up on the foil, it's not a problem. You haven't really got to think about that. Looking at any cons of the product, well, there's a few subtle refinements that we'd like to see over time. Maybe the handles could be tightened up a little bit more again. We did say that in the SUPboarder Pro test. This wing has been changed and it's a little bit tighter, which basically means that when you're holding the actual main rib, your hand is closer to the main strut. Gives you a little bit more control. You find it a little bit easier to use. The canopy shape maybe still needs a little bit more refinement, but to be honest, I'm not going to give it too many negatives, especially at that price point. Definitely aimed at the more of entry-level rider, and a lot of you are going to be looking at these wings this year. Remember, if you want to find out more about this wing and how it compared to other wings, check out the full SUPboarder Pro test on that as well. Moving on to the boards then. So obviously you've got the inflatable route and a composite route. You're probably going to know which one you're going to go for because you obviously need a compact board that you can fold up and it's nice and easy. It goes in a bag for storage, or you can afford to have a hard composite board that stays obviously always in its rigid form. They are very different boards though. The volumes are very different. The composite board is 115 litres. The inflatable board has got a lot more volume there. These boards could definitely be used in both wing foiling and SUP foiling, there's no doubt, but your rider weights will change quite a bit and your ability level will change quite a bit. For instance, the 6.6 Falcon composite board is only 25.5 inches wide. Now you will get more stability when you put a foil on the bottom of a board, but if you take it out in the surf, you are going to be a lighter rider opposed to if you're using the same board for when you're winging. I would say if you're using the Falcon 6.6, if you're winging, you could go from 50 kilos up to maybe 110 kilos, 115 kilos if you're a little bit more on it with your footwork, because you've got that wing to help you stand up to pull you along. Now if you want to take it out SUP foil surfing, I'd say 50 to 80 kilograms would be about the limit. It's definitely if you're that more beginner intermediate for sure. Now unfortunately we didn't get a chance to take it out in the surf, but we think comparing it to other boards we've ridden before, that is probably the size of weight range you're going to be looking at when you're using the Falcon 6.6 in the foil surfing. Looking at the Falcon Air weight wise, if you're using it in the winging sense, it's still going to take a lot of weight. You've got a bit more volume there. 115 kilos, definitely is going to be happier for 95 kilo people. For SUP surfing, a little bit more, still not that much. You've got a bit more width there, so 50 to 90 kilograms maybe if you wanted to get into SUP foil surfing with the inflatable Falcon Air. The construction of these two boards, well, the inflatable is a double chamber board, so you've got an internal chamber which you have to pump up to 15 psi, then you've got an outer chamber which you pump up to 15 psi. That does a number of things. You have an extra safety element there because you have two chambers, but really it's the stiffness that it adds on the board. We put this board through our deflection test, which is where we put it on a gap of 1.5 meters apart at 15 psi, and it dropped 11 millimeters, so it's a fairly stiff board. Definitely the fin box inside helps that. Multiple layers of PVC around the board Stiffness when you're riding it really wasn't a problem. Did not notice any compromise at all with that being an inflatable paddleboard and it bending or something like that. So the construction of that board is a very solid board, and definitely at the value, there's a lot in that inflatable paddleboard. The construction of the composite board, the same, there's a lot in here. We've got a full carbon board, so it's very, very lightweight. There's multiple layers of glass, carbon. It seems fairly hard wearing. Obviously, we've only had it a month. And it definitely a standout pro is the weight of the board for the price point. You're getting a nice carbon construction, and weights of boards do make a difference when you get up into foiling. You've got swing weight, which everybody always talks about, or the length of the board. The longer your board, the more weight you're going to have sticking out the front, because you're going to be foiling on this middle section with your feet. So you can get around that with two ways. You can either cut the nose off the board, but then it makes it harder to paddle in, makes it harder to get up on the foil, or use your wing because you've got less length, less glide, less flow for the water as the board goes through the water, or you can reduce the weight of the board, and that's what Aztron have done here. So you've still got a 6.6 board that's got a fair amount of length to it, a nice amount of glide, gets you up on the foil early, but it's light, and that is a real thumbs up from us. And definitely at the price point, you do getting a nice weight and construction board. When we're using these boards, when we are winging, it's very interesting to use both these boards back to back with the same foil setup. We did a lot of changing around. We changed the foils over as we were riding them, so we keep the feel of the foils under our feet and very much just concentrate on the feel of the boards. The inflatable and the composite both work well. They both work differently to each other, and you can't really compare them against each other because the composite board has that lighter, faster, more responsive feel. It touches down on the water. It has much more of a less drag when you touch down on the water. The bottom shape of the 6.6 Falcon has got a double concave bottom, so when you do touch down, it's very smooth, doesn't drag, and it just pops you back up again. And also because it's a narrower board, it's much more responsive to just pop back up as well. The inflatable has a different feel, as I say. For a start, it sits very nose down when you can see us riding it on the video clips here. When you're riding it and you're on the foil, you can't actually feel how the nose looks, but obviously when you're filming it, and as you can see from these clips, you can quite clearly see it does sit slightly nose down. Is that a massive problem? Well, when you're foiling in the normal sense and you're nice and high on the foil and you're comfortable, it's not really an issue. But definitely if you're starting off and you're coming up and down on the foil all the time, that nose will catch earlier. You won't necessarily nosedive, but you will find it will slow you down and you will have more of a drag as the board hits the top of the water, opposed to the board like the composite one, which basically just keeps going and skims you back up. But the nice thing about that Falcon Air, it's got that extra width, it's pretty stable. The foil box itself feels pretty comfortable right under your foot. It's like a solid feeling plate, and that's really nice. Again, you can jibe it, very comfortable. The placement in the foil box doesn't seem too bad, but definitely we enjoyed using the Falcon composite board a lot more. It's a lot lighter, it's a lot easier to jibe, and as I said, the bottom shape really lends itself to touching down and not producing any drag at all. There's a few other things I like about this board. You've got the deck pad, the kicker at the back there. You've still got the kicker and everything on the inflatable board. The refinements seem okay, but also bringing some slight cons. There are definitely some improvements that need to happen with these two boards. Central carry handles, I've heard that there is going to be central carry handles put on the composite board. This was a very much early production one, because that would be a great idea, because it's very hard to carry with that one. Even though it's 25.5 inches wide, I can just about get it under my arm. The side carry handles on the inflatable do work okay, but they could have a central handle. I think that would be a better option. They've put in a single fin box on the composite board. I don't really think you need that. I think you could just strip that out and don't need it. And also there is a thruster setup, PVC fins on the inflatable paddleboard. Now I'm not going to say you don't need those fins, but I think for most of you, you're just going to be using it with your foil setup. But it is there, and I do understand that some of you out there might want to take it SUP surfing as well. And yes, you will be able to catch a few knee-high waves for sure with the inflatable Falcon Air. My only other con is on the composite Falcon board. There is foot strap plugs on this board, but they're not really quite in the right place. The front foot straps are too far apart and they're too on the edge, so you couldn't quite use them in the sort of parallel stance together. And if you wanted to sort of switch it so it was offset but in the center of the board, it's a little bit too wide and you need an extra wide foot strap. So the back one was much easier, but the front one definitely needed a little bit of work. If you're into using this board without foot straps, it's not a problem at all, and we really enjoyed using this board. Nice flat area, and it did seem to work well with the foils, which we'll speak about now. Now, this is something that really excited us all when we were riding it, because the foils themselves, they do look a little bit basic. They look a bit chunkier. The main fuselage is a bit squarer than other brands. Not so refined, but I guess that's the sort of thing you'd expect, definitely for the price point. We were really surprised with the performance of these foils and how comfortable they felt under our feet. Now, we used a selection of foils, the 2000, the 1800, the 1650. We did have the 1450, but we didn't happen to get it on the water and to have enough time when we were using it, because we were really getting our heads into the three big ones, the 2000, the 1800H, and the 1650. Now, these are really comfortable foils to use. That's the big word I will describe these foils: comfortable. So basically, you've got the 1450, the 1650, and the 2000, which are all aiming at the same type of feel. And you've got the 1800H, which is a slightly more highest ratio. It's been stretched down its wingtip, so it's slightly thinner in its depth and slightly longer. That will give you a slightly different feel, which we'll speak about in a minute. But the 1650 and the 2000 rocket foils from Aztron are very, very comfortable again. Very, very easy. They get you up nice and early. They hold you in a very stable feel when you're flying. They help you initiate your jibes, and they're very smooth around the jibes. I mean, I even managed to do switching my feet over on the foil when I was on an inflatable board. Now, that doesn't sound like very much, but it shows that the foil is doing a lot of the work to keep the stability of the board, to keep you flying, especially when you're using an inflatable. It's a bit easier when you're using a composite board, but it's all about the foil, and that shows how controlled and how stable the foils are in general. The 2000, the bigger one, just gets you up in a little bit lighter winds, a little bit slower speeds. The Rocket 1800H, which is, as I said, the slightly more stretched out highest ratio foil, it's definitely a little bit quicker than 1650. Not a huge amount quicker, but it felt like it could have a higher top end speed if you managed to get in more and more wind. Definitely a little bit harder to use with your jibes, not so, doesn't keep you flowing through the turn as long. So if you're dropping off the foil a lot and you're not very good with your footwork, definitely the 1650 or the 2000 is going to be a little bit easier. The 1800H is that little bit faster, a little bit more top end. Maybe somebody who's a little bit more experienced that wants a more highest ratio, cheaper price point foil would be looking at the 1800H. For 95% of you out there, I'm going to say you are going to be looking at the 1650 or the 2000. If you are 90, 85 kilograms plus and you're getting into wing foiling, surf foiling, you're going to be looking at the 2000. If you are 85 kilograms and down, the 1650 is going to be a really good all-round foil for you. I can't tell you, it was really nice to use these foils because, as I said, we looked at them, we unpacked them, we thought they were okay, a little bit basic. Fittings weren't fantastic, you know, the sort of thing you'd sort of expect for that price point. Got on them, started using them, big smiles on our faces, really happy, really comfortable, and definitely worth the value for money. Most of these foils come as a complete package and they come with the same tail and mast and fuselage. The 1800 has got a different size stabilizer tail foil, a slightly longer, thinner one, just like the front foil, but definitely 70 centimeter mast, probably what most of you can go for, and they all come with the same length fuselage. You can get other lengths mast as well, but when they come as a complete package, the 1450 comes with a 60 centimeter and the other ones all come with 70 centimeter masts. The constructions of the foils, they're carbon aluminium, so you've got carbon foils themselves and you've got aluminium masts and the fuselage. They all fit together fairly easily, all the same size bolts, so you can't get them all lost. Allen key fittings. The stainless seam's good quality. We haven't seen any corrosion or rust over the month or so we've had it. Looking at negatives or cons to the foils, well, I suppose if anything, you could say the refinement of the fittings isn't so good. Maybe the way that the bolts go into themselves, they're not as refined. The finish on top of the bolts, maybe they stick up a little bit more on the foils themselves. It's the sort of thing that I'd expect to see at the price point you're looking at. If you want to spend £2,000, €2,300 just on a foil package, I won't expect to see that. I want to see perfectly finished bolts, not a problem. At this sort of €500, €600 price point, you're gonna see that sort of compromise, and it's something that I'm really happily to accept, especially for the riding feel of these foils on the water. So to give you a summary, we were really happy to get on the Aztron foiling range of gear. We thought it would be all a little bit cheap and basic. We had a few pros and cons throughout the whole range. Yes, central handles need to be added to the composite board. An extra handle would need to be added to the inflatable board. The refinements can carry on going on with the Aztron wing, and definitely the foils aren't as refined as the more top-end price points. But for the value for money and to get you on the water, it is going to get you into the foiling side of SUP, with the surfing or the wing sides of the sport. But the standout product for us is going to be the 1650 Rocket foil. It's a very balanced foil that is going to get a lot of you into foiling and progressing fairly well at a good speed without spending a fortune. Yes, you might want to upgrade it to a better top-end brand after that, but then that has got you onto the foiling ladder, and I'm sure a foil like this will be easy to sell in the future. I hope you found this review interesting and informative. Please leave any comments and questions below. Give this video a like if you found it useful. Give this video a dislike if you found it complete rubbish. But of course, write in the comments why you disliked it and how we can improve it in the future. And also remember, if you've got a more in-depth comment and you want to keep the thread going, get the comments on our SUPboarder site, because YouTube can tend to lose the constant threads of comments and questions coming in. If you've used these products, let us know what you think of them. It's always great to hear your feedback about products around the world. Thank you very much. Check out SUPboarder Pro if you haven't already, and we'll see you on another video real soon.